Hello and welcome to that Pedal Show VCQ Live. Dan here.
Mick here, hello.
That was wonderful.
If that didn't make you feel sick, nothing will. Welcome to Viewers' Comments and Questions.
Yes, indeed.
On this fine October day.
Indeed.
Are we on then?
We are on.
Do we think? Not bad. Not bad.
So, before any further ado, would only be right for us to mention dearly departed Mr. Edward Van Halen.
Oh, Ed, yeah. How blinking sad that was.
Did you interview him?
No, never did. Met him once, very briefly in Frankfurt.
Wow.
He was doing a PV, clinic for PV. And, hang on. That's my brief handshake with Edward Van Halen. Actually, I'm not even sure there was a handshake. There was just kind of a hello. Somebody asked him to play Eruption and he got really annoyed.
Really?
Yeah. I think it might have been a little bit worse for wear.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah. So to everyone who loved Eddie Van Halen and still loves Eddie Van Halen,
yeah,
we wish him Godspeed and all that on his way there.
Can I tell my Van Halen story?
Please do.
We've still got something on.
No, I think it's just the amps, Fraser. Bop. Bop. There you go.
Okay. I was 12, I think. No, I can't have been. I was 13. Anyway, I was young. And my brother was playing guitar before I did. And he did this thing where he went, right? And I saw that and went, whoa, that's amazing. And I went, right? And then I disappeared in my room for 3 months going, and I thought, whoa, look what I've invented! I'm amazing! And then, I swear I thought I had invented it. And then my brother brings home 1984 by Van Halen and he puts it on. And I sat down there, I listened to it for about 15 minutes and I went in my room and cried. Hearing what he did, and I just went, ugh.
I didn't invent this.
I did invent that, and he's amazing.
There's this really cool American.
He's really, really good at it. He sounds amazing.
Yeah, lots of people have asked us to do a tribute show to Ed. We obviously would be the right thing to do, but I shiver at the thought of trying to pay any kind of musical tribute to Ed just because he was so unique. And I don't know. The best tribute you can do is call up Van Halen or buy a record and listen to him and just enjoy the legacy that he left. And indeed, all the people that he inspired, because, he was as important as Hendrix or Clapton or anybody else. So he was one of those handful of players that really changed everything, you know.
Totally.
So anyway,
go and have a listen to
Ed.
Sorry, every time I hear the Speed It solo, like first take, and it still to this day blows my mind. And there's a couple of specific notes in that.
Yeah.
There's a pinch harmonic on the lower string where it goes, whoa. And I've never heard anyone else get that sound. It's just so vocal without being crazy distorted.
Yeah.
It's amazing. There's a really great story, actually. There's a few of the guys who knew him really well have some stories this week, and Mr. Soldano had this amazing story about when he met him, came out to his shop.
We can honk Mike Soldano.
Mike Soldano. And it's a really lovely story. And he came out to try some amplifiers and stuff. And anyway. I've always had a real soft spot in my heart for him, because when I was young I used to do all that stuff. But whenever I heard Eddie, it was just so humbling, you know. So yeah, really, really cool.
something of a somber note, but I think, yeah, let's move on. Right, we have got super chats coming in already.
We do. Heavens.
Bill Sherrington's first in the comments this week. Hi, Bill. Nice to hear from you. He says, "What's up from a wet Wimbledon?" Yeah, it's wet here too. It's the winter. Right, W Cart 2 says, "How would you compare the differences and similarities between the Tone King Imperial Mark II and the Deluxe Reverb reissue? Thanks."
Interesting.
Yeah, I know both amps pretty well because Dan and I have played them a lot just recently. The Tone King, let's deal with the clean channel first. The Tone King's probably got more scope for tweakery in terms of the basic EQ, but you know, they're both really lovely 6v6. I would say maybe the Tone King's got a bit more headroom.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Just a hair more headroom.
But it's also got the attenuator, so it's got less headroom if you want. And then, of course, it's got a whole overdrive channel, which is, even as someone who doesn't really like overdrive channels, is a glorious thing.
It's incredible.
I haven't actually looked inside. Most modern boutique amps of that ilk, whether it's Tone King or Mesa or, you know, that thing behind us, Morgan, they're all made kind of the same, a sort of modern PCB approach to the main circuit, and depending on the amp, you either might find things like the tube sockets and pots mounted directly to the chassis and flown to the main PCBs, or you might find them mounted on PCBs, none of which is worse or better, but it is obviously quicker and cheaper to do it all on a PCB. And I rather suspect the Deluxe Reverb is more towards the former, and I suspect the Tone King is more towards the latter, looking at the difference in price. I don't know without opening them up and having a look. So build quality, you're not talking about, you know, the Tone King Imperial Mark II is not a hand-wired, matchless or two-rock style thing. It's not in that game, as far as I'm aware. So build quality-wise, they're not a million miles apart, I wouldn't say. I rather suspect the people that build Tone King would disagree with that. So yeah, tonally, they're both ace. Yeah. But the Imperial's more versatile because of the attenuator and because of the second channel, considerably more so.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, that was a way long-winded.
That's very good.
Gordon Rankin. Hi, Gordon. Hope everything is well. Venturing out of the bubble this week to Charity Music Festival on Put-in Bay in Ohio. Put-in Bay, maybe that is. Maybe that's where he sells all his old stuff.
He was going to have a bay named after him at some point, right?
Yes, I sold all my old tanks on Put-in Bay. We're gonna get bombed, aren't we? And that's what's going to happen next. Cheers from Park City, Utah, says Mad Crafter.
Oh, boy.
Rockford Santa Cruz says, "Hi guys, I have a small 15-watt wet dry rig, AC15 and a bass breaker."
Yeah, you do.
15, but I want to move on to something with a bit more headroom. What do you suggest about 1200 Deluxe Reverb?
Deluxe Reverb.
Yeah, or, you know...
That's a little bit more headroom. It's not going to be a lot more headroom. If you want, if the 15 watts isn't loud enough for you in a wet dry rig... Hot
Rod Deluxe. It's
Hot Rod Deluxe.
It's such a sensible price and a really great amp.
Yep. Or an AC30.
Yeah. Victory V40.
Or the copper.
Yeah. Not so much headroom in that.
No.
But that's Victory true. V40. Yeah, there's a lot you can get there for 1,200 quid.
Manica Lion says, "You don't know what's enough until you know what's too much. So I got a 1970 twin reverb, 100 watts. Yeah. My first tube amp.
Excellent.
Amp jitters. Any tips?" Okay, so here's a tip.
That was pretty much my first tube amp as well, I think. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So jump in the deep end.
Yeah.
What you want to do is take the amp somewhere where you can turn it up and let it breathe a bit, so you understand what that amp is capable of. Now, it might be... I remember I got my first 100-watt Marshall, and I was living in Mackay, and I was living on the river. We had this converted, I don't know what it was. It was this beautiful place. It was on the river, had this massive balcony. I used to fish from my balcony. It was unreal. Anyway.
Was it a shipping container?
Yes, nailed it. No, it was this big, massive old wooden barn, and it was like, it was beautiful. Anyway, and there's some students, and I was living there. Anyway, one night everyone was out, and I brought with the Marshall out onto the veranda, right? big open space and I cranked it up. I just all the way. But the really cool thing about that was because I wasn't in an enclosed space, it didn't seem loud.
Yeah.
Right? I wasn't stood right in front of it. I think I was to the side of it. And just hearing what that amplifier was capable of when it was cranked was a revelation. So go somewhere where there's a lot of space, and where you can turn it up and just sort of understand what that amplifier is capable of.
Yeah. Did you say a 70s one?
70s one, J&P.
Yeah. Okay. But this twin reverb that we're talking about.
This is the 70s twin reverb.
Yeah, so they're not the same, depending on which end of the 70s.
Yeah.
If it's like a Silverface one towards the end of the 70s, that is very much not the same thing as like a 65 twin. It's a completely different animal.
Sure.
And you may find, I got my first one was of that ilk, and I remember turning it up going, wow, this doesn't sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan at all. Just ball-achingly loud.
Sure.
And like awesomely wonderful. So you will need a couple of overdrive pedals with that, but enjoy.
But I think if you're going to have a 100-watt amplifier, just feel what it can do.
Yeah.
You know?
And that doesn't mean turn it up to 10 and hit the bejesus out of it.
No.
It means turn it up and
Let
just
it breathe.
Breathe with it.
Yeah,
Quiet,
totally.
loud, enjoy the dynamic, because you just don't get that in small amps. Darren Cunningham says, hi Mick and Dan, which solid state or digital amp were you most impressed with, the Tone Master or the Boss Next Tone? This is a great question.
Oh, interesting.
Boss Next Tone for me.
Yeah, Next Tone. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Just a bit, it was more flexible. But I remember we had that jam in the studio with it and it was great.
Yeah.
Really good.
Daniel Blankenship. Hello, Daniel. I recently purchased a Morgan AC20.
Nice.
And I'm currently running a Golden Fleece into a Ryra clone for my drive section. Sounds great. Any other favourite drive pedals to run into a Vox style amp? Daniel.
Yeah. So I would say if you haven't tried a hot cake into that, you must. The hot cake for me into an AC30 is just absolutely divine. The other one is the Chupacabra into that. I think sounds incredible.
Oh yeah, Mythos,
the Mythos
Chupacabra, which means goat sucker, just in case you weren't fully aware of that.
Yeah, but it sounds like you've got that sort of raspy edge of things covered. So definitely try a hot cake. It's amazing.
Don't be afraid to overdrive the trebles as well.
Yeah,
because
totally.
Vox amps can be quite brash in that world. So if you overdrive those trebles, it rounds them right off and it sounds really nice.
Yeah.
So, which is why things like treble boosters work so well.
Yeah. Airfire, thank you, mate. He says, after hearing you talk about connection with gear, I went to Guitar and tried out one of their exclusive Fender Player Jazz Masters. I also tried out a Telly and instantly felt the difference. 800 pounds down, but so happy. Cheers, fellas. That's the thing when you feel connected to something and it brings something out of you, and whether that's $8,000, 800, £8, it's all about feeling connected.
Yeah. It's hard to look back once you've experienced it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Jacob Matthews. Hello, I love your show. What's to come of the Walrus Audio Mako series? Don't know. We've only seen one, haven't we, so far? The delay, the D1. No doubt Walrus have things up their collective sleeves.
I'll get hold of Colt and see what he's doing.
Yeah, I had a chat with Jason. We did a thing for guitar.com live, which happened last weekend, with Jason from Walrus, Thorpe and Nick Greer, and we had a chat and talked about a few things. He didn't mention anything, but
okay.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Me, Thorpe and Nick Greer talking about the future of guitar pedals. Thank God Jason was there. Actually, that's probably doing Thorpe a disservice. But
Louis Enrique Machado, thank you very much for that, mate. Yeah, that's very generous. Thank you. And Modern Vintage says, which clean, dirty amps do you think are still worth buying after buying a Two-Rock, since they're bigger and arguably better than most other amps? So that's interesting. After the Two-Rock, would you feel a need to buy another specific clean or dirty amplifier?
A lot more dirty amps, yeah. I mean, so let me I'll try and answer this quickly. That's the last guitar amp I'll ever need, apart from something smaller. because it does everything I want it to do. But I was thinking about a TS1, which is their Dumbley one.
Ooh,
Because
really?
I've got a massive hankering again for the Dumble sound, which is why I've got that Mesa 5050 stereo power amp
Doing the rack thing.
underneath the Soldano, and a couple of Kingsley preamp pedals, and Simon's just built me and Dan something really cool called the Paso Doble, which is the second gain stage. So I'm going to step back into that Dumbley world for a minute. That 2-Rock doesn't do the Dumbley overdrive thing. It's not what it's for. So for an overdrive amplifier, I would definitely look to the Dumble world again. And a really great Marshall, like a nice modded Marshall. I'd love to have one one day.
Sure.
Clean amps, I don't know, call me old-fashioned. You just can't beat classic Fender amps.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Was that when you hear the Fender clean sound, it's like that's the sound we recognise, and it connects instantly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
And it does a thing, you know, it's a bit like Strats and Tellys and Les Pauls for all of their idiosyncrasies and things that aren't quite right about them. You know, the things that the boutique guitar builders build out and mend. For every one of those idiosyncrasies comes a unique tone and response and feel which you either like or you don't. So I'm definitely... you go through periods in your gear life where you want more complex and modern, and definitely less complex and old. And I'm down here again at the moment.
Sure.
I just want old stuff. Which is expensive.
Fender Jeff says, "Hey guys, I was wondering what you think about standalone reverb units. I'd love a show with tube reverb unit or two in glorious TPS quality sound."
Okay, so on the subject of the Boogie Power Amp rig, I was in touch with a company in Germany called, I can't remember and I'll remember in a minute, name that I hadn't heard before. Vermones, thank you. Vermona. I can't remember it because it doesn't sound very German, it sounds more Italian. And they make some great standalone reverb units, so they're sending a couple in.
Are they?
Yeah. And maybe we should get hold of a 63 tube reverb, you know, one of the Fender ones.
Let's just do that.
And something else, and there's a great show.
Yeah,
so what
lovely.
do we think of them? We think they're ace, Jeff, and when they're valve driven, like those old, I mean, that Fender 63 reverb unit, crazy expensive as they are now, like stupid money, nothing sounds like it. Just the whole thing of itself. So, and no doubt there are other variants of that on the market. So there's a show.
Yeah, that's
you ever used
brilliant. Plugged into a few of them, and I'd used a couple of things in the studio, and they do have a character all their own. It's like the tape delay thing.
Yeah.
They have a character that sort of stands alone. It's pretty amazing. Plug them into a decent... actually, what I found about them was you plug them into a high headroom amp, look great, but plug them into an amplifier that's driving as well, and they still sound amazing.
Yeah.
They've got the ability to drive the amp a little bit as well.
They have their own thing, yeah.
Really, really cool.
Actually, we'll come on to this. We've got a pedal on the board today, the Kaleidoscope from Jupiter Effects. That's got a drive section in it.
Oh, does it?
It's really cool. We'll plug it in a minute. It's really, really bonkers sounding thing.
Wow.
Thank you very much to BV.
Yes, BV.
For moderating today.
Thank you.
As always.
We missed you last week. Missed all of you last week.
Yes. I decided to go on holiday again. That was weird.
Yeah?
Yeah. So you can't open a venue and stand 200 people next to one another.
No.
But you can cram them on an airport bus and shuttle them from an airplane to the terminal. That doesn't seem to be subject to any social distancing laws whatsoever.
Wow.
And you can jam them in like sardines to an EasyJet aircraft.
Boy, oh boy.
It's utterly crazy. I honestly thought things would be, I mean, you might say it's slightly idiotic to travel at all, but we were on a bit of a mercy mission, blah, blah, blah. But I'm amazed. I'm utterly amazed the airlines are allowed to do that in this thing. Anyway, sorry, moan.
Josh Bamey says, "Hey gents, I'm looking for something low gain fuzzy for rhythm tones. I play a telly into a 1x12 Princeton."
Oh, nice.
Low gain fuzzy.
Well, low gain fuzzy is kind of tough because fuzzy and low gain aren't the same thing.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Daniel?
I would agree.
Yeah. these are the three that immediately come to mind.
Yep.
For me, Walrus 385, which is a
Nice.
super sounding thing.
Yep.
Thorpe Warthog, which is a distortion which can run low gain, but has also got a tremendous amount of headroom. Sounds completely amazing. Mythos Golden Fleece, one knob, quite fuzzy, quite quickly, but absolutely brilliant for, you know, sitting under a vocal, because it's quite, you know, one thing about fuzzes is they tend to be a bit mid-scoopy.
Yeah.
So I would go with any of those, and probably the simplest, most versatile, fun pick for me would be the Walrus 385.
Yeah, it's a really special sounding thing, that. Actually, Mick and I had dinner probably, was it last year now?
Had dinner once,
And
still hungry.
we were sat there next to the table. He'd had an old projector,
Yeah.
and we were both looking at it going, oh, I wonder
That's
if
in
we
my
could...
local pub.
Yeah.
Mythos Pedals is on, says you guys.
Hey,
bud.
Zach. How are you? You'll notice we have the Chupacabra as well today, Zach.
Yeah, I'm loving that thing.
I was asking Zach for some Les Paul advice this week.
Oh,
Thank you, Zach, by the way.
what did he say? Buy a
Well,
what's the Italian
Catherine's
phrase?
watching, so I can't
Okay.
reveal any more. Friend of mine, actually an old colleague of mine, or at least associate of mine, is selling a nice gold top from a particular year. And it's not massively expensive. So I said to Zach, why isn't it very expensive? And he said, because of all these things. I was like,
No way.
yeah, but he said still could be a great guitar.
Yeah.
So go and play it.
He had a list
Yeah.
that he had to email twice because he couldn't fit all the list on one email. And then at the end of that, he did a Zach disclaimer.
Yeah.
And he said, but it still could be a great guitar. Don't let me put you off.
Well, the man knows his Les Pauls,
Yeah,
and,
I'm sure.
and it really is. And I thoroughly intend to check it out, because after playing that one that belongs to Dear Neville, they're nearly 10 grand now. Those,
It's crazy.
I can't get my head around it.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Aidan Underhill says, Steve Lukather played the rhythm and bass guitars on Beat It. Yes, he did. He was a busy session boy back in the day.
A couple of brilliant shots from him in the studio on those sessions.
And wasn't it Paul Jackson modded Deluxe?
Paul Revere
Paul
modded.
Revere, Paul
Yeah.
Jackson, Paul Revere modded.
Yeah, that was one of his main studio amps for a
Yeah.
long time. I think he did the Rosanna solo on that as well.
Did he?
I think so.
Wow. J.A. Ken Trainer. Did you play Trainer amps?
I have one.
Really great. Salutations from Halifax on the CDN Persuasion. I pre-ordered a CXM 1978 to go with my tomato tone.
Oh, yeah.
What planet will I end up when the missus finds out? Well, I tell you what, you may be in a vacuous expanse of no space. However, you'll be there with a delicious reverb because that pedal is extraordinary.
Yeah,
I've been
it really
playing
is.
one, so we got one and I've been playing it and I'm just blown away.
back there.
Absolutely blown away. When I first heard about it, I messaged the guys from, there it is, look at that thing. So I messaged the guys from Meris because Meris had a reverb pedal that I plugged into. A few of you guys remember, I was just so blown away with it. It was the most real sounding reverb, especially plugged into the Matchless. That just blew my mind. And when I heard they were doing a collaboration with Joel and Chase Bliss, and it is everything I hoped it would be. It's extraordinary.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
Absolutely spectacular.
Gordon Rankin, thank you so much, mate. That's
Thank
very
you, Gordon.
generous of
That's
you,
super
Gordon.
kind of you. Super kind of you. Nigel Baker says, have you tried Bartel amps yet? It's Mark Bartel from Tone King. I haven't, but I look at his pictures on Instagram and you can see how good they're going to sound. The work that Mark puts into those things is just... And the price kind of reflects it.
Sure.
For
As it should.
craftsmanship,
As it
but-
should.
Yeah, we should do one. I think Mark's very well known and lots of people love him, but you can never say enough good things about that man and his amplifiers.
Yeah, awesome. John Newquist, good morning, boys. Greetings from Sonoma County.
They make nice wine there.
Special thanks to Catherine. Just got the ship notification for my D&M Dymo edition.
They were being packed today. So for those of you who did or didn't see, we did a special edition, a limited edition D&M drive. Some had no graphics on, and some had the Dymo type graphics on.
Have we been remiss and not have brought one in with us?
I can go and get one, but
Okay.
yes. So they are being packed and shipped today. The first batch, which is cool. Thank you to everyone
Yes.
who bought one.
Thank you so much to everyone that bought one.
That
It's
is, for those of
really-
you who don't know, that's kind of the way we make the cash to pay everybody, and the rent and the light and the heat, is we sell stuff, and that helps us. So thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Big boy
Pay a while.
Paywall. Oh, man. Love you guys from Manila.
Manila. Nice. Nice. Bryson Cook. Just watched the AC15 video with the hotcake and the Pro Analog Fuzz. I've got Jesse's Mini Fuzz SI and an AP Broadcast. Would the hotcake complete my soul?
Undoubtedly. And I tell you what's amazing with the hotcake. I used to use my treble booster into the hotcake. Best solo tone in the AC30 I ever had. I didn't have to crank the AC30 to get that, because into a clean AC30, but I love the clean tone of an AC30 when it's not, crazy driven. Hotcake, treble booster into the hotcake, into a clean AC30.
Nice.
Just awesome.
The great thing about the hotcake, Bryson, is it's very different from either of those other things. So
Very different.
Yeah,
indeed.
it's not like you're, duplicating one set of sounds. It's very different from either.
Yeah. And also, Paul Crowther was the drummer in Split Ends.
He was.
So just put that in there because
Yeah,
they
right.
were awesome. And my mate, Neil Finn.
We can honk Neil Finn.
Can I Neil Finn?
Can we honk Paul Crowther?
I've spoken to him on the phone, but I've never met him.
Sorry, that's just made me think of a TV show that I've just finished watching. Catherine and I have just finished watching with Michael Douglas. And it's called The Kaminsky Method. It's on Netflix, and it's about Hollywood, and he's an acting coach.
All right.
But it reflects quite strongly on the issues of aging in men. It is completely hilarious. And this sound reminds me of a scene in the restaurant. It's really funny. The script is aces. It's really brilliant.
Brilliant.
Matt Lloyd.
Matt Lloyd.
Hi, Matt. Thank you for buying a label maker. Very kind of you. And I hope you enjoy it. Matt says, thoughts on mixing pots. I recently mixed a 250k volume and a 500k tone with an 047 cap on a telly, and it has a much more raunchy classic rock vibe now. I've never actually tried that. So presumably you get...
Well, it's more resistance.
You get a bit more high end.
It's more resistance between the capacitor and ground. So
yeah.
less filtering.
Okay. It's those like negative things that I can't understand.
Yeah, well, it's just,
It's more negative.
More negative. It's more negative.
Yeah.
Ergo, no.
Yes, less positive.
There you go.
But it's more positive.
It is, but therefore more positive
Yes.
in this context.
That's a good shout, Matt. I've never tried it. Would be interesting.
It is really interesting. There's some really cool things that you can do just with the passive electronics inside the guitar.
It's so passive.
It's so passive. Different pot values, capacitor values, different capacitor positions, using capacitor as high pass filters in certain positions. Really cool. I might do a little 5-minute vlog on some fun things that you can do.
Make it an hour, Dan. Let's get our money's worth. Come on.
No, if I'm filming it, it's going to be 5 minutes and no more.
2,000 hours of footage for 5 minutes.
Honestly, I've developed this thing where I'm doing a vlog and I'm watching myself back in the edit and I'm looking at myself going, you idiot. And I've sat there repeating a line over and over like 20 minutes. I'm trying to find a decent one where I don't come off like an absolute idiot. And it's getting harder and harder to do.
It is. I would encourage everyone to try and make a video, because what happens is, we make the videos, and when it's all of us in the room, it flows. And
It's easy.
What you see on that pedal show, let's say the show ends up being 55 minutes. The runtime might be an hour and 5.
Yeah, but
Once
most of it's there.
we've broken a string or done something that requires
Or
fixing.
something completely inappropriate.
But with vlogs, what ends up as a 20-minute vlog is probably 3 hours of footage. And
I wish it was 3 hours of footage.
and so when you publish that vlog, and our lovely people out there watching this, we are so unbelievably blessed to have you lot as the audience, I must say. And I mean that after reading Anderson's comments and other people's comments. We are so lucky with you lot. Somebody helpfully says something like, why didn't you do this? Because when you're watching the video, it's completely obvious that that's what you should have done. But when you're doing the filming,
Yeah.
you're like try and make sure the light's not falling over and swearing at the camera because it's going out of focus.
Yeah.
And
It's
quite hard.
it is. You know, when you look at guys like guys who are amazing like Paul David and Rick Beard, the guys who do everything on their own, and how they've come up with such great production quality and stuff. It's like just
Pretty serious.
really talented.
We'll get there, Dan.
The thing is, though, you can do it. You've got all those things in your wheelhouse. I simply have frustration in my wheelhouse. That's it.
Well, on the subject of wheelhouses, then, Cesar Ojeda says, hi from Norway. And Cesar, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Hi from Norway. Love the show. Learned so much from you guys. How can I get started with switches and loops when I'm a complete noob in that area?
Okay. You get started with it understanding what it is that they do and the problems that they solve. So if you've just got into pedals, don't worry about it. Explore sounds, explore the pedals, explore changing the orders of things and stuff. But what happens inevitably when you acquire more pedals and you want to have more and more things on your board, and then one day you realize, actually, that's not the sound I started with. And that's when you start asking the question about, okay, what do I need to get out of my signal chain here to get that sound back? And then the other side, of course, is when you start developing sounds from using combinations of pedals and you want to be able to quickly access those combinations of pedals, that's when you want to start looking at loop switches. But it's an interesting show. It's challenging for me to do it. It sounds stupid, but I don't know. I just feel there's a lot to be learnt there. How do we do it without it sounding like a big commercial for what I do?
Yeah.
And that's what I find really hard because I don't want to do that.
I guess what you need to know is that a switcher has two main benefits. One is practicality and functionality. So can you turn things on and off without having to do 5-foot presses? So functionality is a really big deal. But then also tone is a really big deal. But it's not as cut and dried. Functionality it's infinitely better with a switcher.
Yep.
If you've got to turn things on and off and multiple things and all of that. And you need to boost levels and cut levels if you're talking about something like G2. Tone is much more subjective. Now, I would say, having been a G2 user now for some years, the improvement in tone that I get it's hard to come back from there.
Sure.
With a big board, I wouldn't be able to come back from there. But it's not for everybody.
No.
Because what you get is more fidelity, more clarity, much more integrity in your signal path and all of that stuff, which really isn't for everybody.
Yeah.
So
totally.
I wonder if you've got a friend or someone who's got one and you can kind of have a listen and have a muck about with it. And then back from G2, you've got something like Dan's Quartermaster, which is just a bunch of true bypass loops. That is a problem solver. So if you've got a pedal that's too quiet, one of the bypass really sucks, it's noisy, etc., etc., you can just get rid of that by sticking it in its own loop and having it out of the way when you don't need it. So practicality.
Yeah.
On the subject of which, Gordon, you were very generous with your super chat, but you didn't get your question in. And your question was to Dan. So is the reason for lackluster output on pedals the fact that most of these fuzz pedals have a volume pot on the output? So Gordon is referring to the show we did on Friday about various fuzz pedals.
Yeah. So it is really interesting looking at the, how the schematic diagrams and stuff and the design of fuzz pedals, and that is one of the reasons. So if you think about the volume control that is directly located on the output, and that, depending on where you have the volume, will affect its output impedance.
They always sound better when they're up. To me.
So if you think about a pot, the least amount of impedance is at the extremes of either side of the pot. The most amount of impedance is in the middle. So if you with it all the way up, and you have less output impedance, and actually drives the signal a bit better. Generally, in a design where they'll buffer the input and they'll buffer the output, so they basically take care of all those problems. They give you a consistent output impedance. But in the early days of these designs, they really didn't have these standards that they were after. And I guess, it was, they found a design that sounded amazing. They didn't know they're going to have to solve problems from it later on down the road.
No.
I've
got 7 pedals after this. They were like, that's crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll be talking into our watches before that happens.
Yeah. Look, here's your fuzz pedal. Boom. Nothing else than that,
And no one will hear that in the Albert Hall anyway.
So, but that is definitely part of it. One thing that I do want to try is to put like a graphic equalizer in a loop with the fuzz.
Yes.
And so that the graphic is on, and we can try and get the EQ it so that the fuzz works, just as an experiment.
Yeah.
But then the output impedance from the EQ is consistently low.
Does the job.
But we'll see, but again, it gets to that problem where you are changing that characteristic, and so it'd be interesting. We'll work. I don't know.
Dan and I have had communique with a number of people since Friday's show who are going to make some little buffery things.
Yeah.
Because it's piqued the interest of a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Who, some people just said, well, why don't you put a buffer after it? It's like, well,
watch the show.
Watch the whole show. But it'll be interesting. I think the solution is going to be attaching a permanent buffer to the secret machine.
Yeah. But in a loop.
Yeah.
So either you mod the secret machine, so you take the output off, put the buffer on, and so that's effectively in a loop.
Yeah.
Or you put that and the buffer in
I've got a new one coming, actually.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, not with a different buffer, but Dan's done one that sounds even more doily. So,
of course.
Patrick Carroll.
Do you call them doilies here? The little crocheted things, the doilies? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. That's what I put on my pillow.
You have doily on your pillow?
Yeah.
Right.
Patrick Carroll. I might have to go and get a drink in a minute, Dan. Says, are there other DAWs, digital audio workstations, apart from Logic and Luna that you like? Fraser? Pro Tools, yeah. I've never used Pro Tools, but anyone serious uses Pro Tools.
I had a friend of mine who I'd never heard any of his work, but he called himself a producer. And I said, what do you use, Pro Tools? He goes, Slow Tools. What? You idiot.
So was he like, yeah, I'm like so Ableton, man.
He was, I don't know. Ableton is great.
Yeah. Well, what are the good ones? Does Cubase still exist, Fraser?
It's something new now. I've forgotten what it's
Cuboid
called.
bass.
I don't use it, sorry.
Yeah.
They've redesigned it.
What's this? What does everyone use on a PC that isn't Pro Tools?
Changing. The Studio One.
Yeah.
The new Cubase one, whatever that is.
What's free? What do all the kids use?
Ableton is on. You can get it on computer as well.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not really been using Macs for so long now.
Yeah. The truth is, they all do the same thing, and some of them have functionality and power that others don't have. But for the kind of thing that me and Dan do, we don't need Logic and Luna and Pro Tools. We're just not that advanced. However, I'm going to say something really controversial.
Go on. You hear it here first.
I think Luna sounds awesome.
Yeah, so Luna has a couple of things that are really clever. One of the things is that summing amplifier in it.
But
would you agree, Fraser?
We've bounced some stuff out that doesn't sound as good when it's bounced out as when it's in
Luna.
In Luna.
Ah.
A lot of people are correcting me and saying Reaper.
Reaper. There you go. That's
Don't
the
fear
one.
the Reaper.
Yeah. So Patrick Reaper. That's the one that people say, why don't you use a lot? I see that in the comments. But you know, as with all software, when you've used something for 10 years,
Yeah,
the
of
idea of
course.
switching to something else is just like, I don't want to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
So my super chats are disappearing off. Wells Chilton says, Dan, I saw your R2R treble booster on the show. Will it be appearing? Oh, I saw it on Instagram. Will it be appearing on the show
Oh,
soon?
you beauty, Peppers.
Yes, it will be appearing on the show soon. Is that cider?
Thanks. It's lemon. It's lemon cider. It's really weak.
I'll have one, of course. Thank you very much.
Cheers,
Thank you very
Peppers.
much.
Cheers.
That's
Cheers,
Catherine,
Peppers.
who packs all the pedals and keeps me and Dan alive. Yeah, that wasn't even a slow clap, Bebbers. That was just sheer appreciation.
Cheers, bud.
Otherwise, we just wouldn't be here. It's the truth.
Where's Chilton? Yes, it will. I'm going to be doing a treble booster show because I'm hunting. I've recently come into the most amazing treble boosters that I've seen for decades. One of them being the R2R electric one. One of them being our friend.
The fuzzy goat,
Yeah, and also
the goatee fuzz,
no, the one with the rocket on it. Oh, come on.
the rooster. Jam Pedal's rooster's really good.
Jam Pedal Rooster's great. No, the guy that does the hand-wired...
Oh, yeah. Reeves Electro.
Reeves Electro. Far out, man, my brain. Anyway,
Simon Jarrett sent me one as well.
yeah, so there's... Yes, he is. And also, there's the fire bottle. So there's a few things that have sort of blown my mind with as far as treble boosters I can say. And so I'm going to do a vlog or a show on, my search for the next treble booster.
Where's the R2 one? I thought I saw the R2R one. No, maybe it's in the other room.
It's incredible.
But the R2R thing's really interesting.
Oh, but of course, the Dirty Mac.
Yeah.
Which has blown my mind. So there's a few things But the R2R, okay.
All reclaimed old bits.
If you go on to our Instagram, you'll see a picture of the R2R, and inside the back cover, he tells you what every single component is, reclaimed 1962 capacitor from something or other, and it is unbelievable. It's blown my mind. So, yes, we're going to get into them. It's going to be fun.
Wagner Alves says, I have a Boogie Mark IV. What do you recommend for boosting channel 2? Quite a bit gain in channel 2 on that, as I remember, if you run it that way. So you don't want anything too gainy.
Graphic.
Yeah, graphic equalizer, treble booster, something that's boosty rather than
gainy.
overdrivey
Yep.
will work really well. The one that we always end up recommending is the RC booster
That's such a great pedal.
by Exotic, for
Yep.
the simple fact it's got bass and treble EQ, so you can have more boost or less boost and more gain or less gain, and then you can really shape the EQ, and it's a real Swiss Army knife, that pedal, I
Yep.
think,
It's wonderful.
despite its ostensible simplicity.
Yep.
Yep.
Modern Vintage says, after playing a 2-rock, high gain amps don't feel and sound great. What are the 2-rock high gain equivalents? Parts, quality, big, clear tone. Oh, that is a really interesting question.
So, sorry, was that high gain or not high gain?
What are the 2-rock high gain equivalents?
Oh, Soldano SLO 100,
There you go.
which I still haven't heard one of the new ones, but the old ones, oh my God.
Yeah.
Just
I actually love that song.
massive clarity.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the price of that one compared to the 100,
Right.
I think we could probably say something about the build.
Okay, fair enough.
What else? High gain. I still really love old modded Marshalls. You just
Yeah.
can't get away from that
No.
sound. But then there's all of those other awesome high gain amps which Dan and I don't really understand. So all your diesels and your, I don't know, all of that.
I'm going to tell a quick story about Diesel.
Yeah.
There was one of the first guitar shows that we did, there was a guy in the Diesel stand, and he had like this, 78 string guitar, and the Diesel, sort of summoning some sort of dark forces up. And it was a really, really cool sound. Anyway, I was doing a thing of switching between. I had my AC30, I had an old Plexi, and an old Twin, and I had them in the room, and I had them all like cranked. Do you remember at the guitar shows where
you
I used
had
to
that little
I had the booth,
cabin,
the
yeah.
cabin, and I had them all at the one end of the cabin, and I did this thing. I had them all really turned up, and so the guy from the diesel stand, he came in and he heard it, and said, "Oh, that sounds amazing." And anyway, he brought his guitar in, this crazy infinite string thing, and plugged it into 3 clean amps, cranked. And it was one of the heaviest guitar sounds I've ever heard. And it blew his mind that he went back and got everyone from saying, "You got to hear this," you know. So it is those amplifiers, when they're turned up and you hit them hard, they can do the business.
See, I think great high gain sounds, and we all mean different things by that, don't we? So if you're talking about, I don't know, like Petrucci or any modern metal stuff out, moving on from progressive high gain rock into, and if you go into metal, that's the world that Dan and I just fundamentally don't understand, with great respect to everyone who plays it. But Meshuggah, all that sort of stuff, literally no idea what's going on there.
Honey, honey.
So
honey.
With respect to everyone who loves and plays that kind of music, we just park that for a second because we don't understand it. High gain to me and him means, what does high gain to you mean? It means Van Halen?
Oh, high gain to me is Red, King Crimson.
Okay.
That's high gain to me.
And I could even come into Passion and Warfare. That's how much about I understand. It's Richie Blackmore. It's
Soundgarden.
Michael Landau, Soundgarden. Yeah. So high gain to me means classic rock high gain before metal existed.
I got my daughter into Metallica recently, and she loves it. I hear her jumping around singing One. That's so great. It's really, really cool.
Well, okay, so good case in point. Hetfield, Explorer, dual rectifier, Marshall, whatever.
Yep.
That's a sound.
Yeah.
I can live with that.
Yep.
What happens next is confusing. So for me, a great high gain guitar sound is about multiple gain stages, whether they're pedals or pickups.
Cascading
Into one another, adding colour to get this thing that is gainy but clear and loud and full of harmonics and awesomeness.
Yep.
Right? For me, the high gain thing, once you put 5 gain stages in a guitar amp and you hammer the hell out of, 4 halves of a 12AX7s or 5 halves of 12AX7s, it just starts getting smaller. So a lot of the guitar sounds I hear in a lot of modern metal, the guitar sounds small to me. It doesn't sound massive or like full of harmonics. So I think a lot of the high gain sounds I hear just sound small. Whereas those huge guitar tones, like the massive Landau, Blackmore, where there was a 100-watt amp breathing on the end of it because it could take all that gain.
Yeah.
Seems to me. Anyway, so those are... I haven't answered your question at all, but that's what high gain means to me.
Noah Bottomer. Cheers as always from Michigan. I loved the last 2 episodes. That classic Fender tone always lights me up, and it was nice to see a deep dive on complications and solutions. Back to basics. Thank you, Noah.
Thank you, Noah. Lots of people said it felt like classic TPS, the Buffers one.
That was great. Disappearing down a rabbit hole for an hour.
Yeah.
Just wonderful.
Timo Tuchtman says, "Hey guys, love the show so much. Thank you. Thanks for being who you are. You were talking about Nobel's ODR1, my favourite OD. Will you do a shootout between all the models? Greetings from Austria." Yes, Nobels have been in touch, and we kind of should at least put it into some context.
Cool.
It's a great pedal. It's very widely used, but maybe if you've never heard one, you might assume it sounds a way that it doesn't.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
As for all the variants, I guess we'll do our best.
Yep. Blake Pursley says, Uncle Dan and Mick, the H9 can be ran pre-post mode, where the first set of ins and outs can be routed pre-gain and the second set post. This is causing a bad hum. Any ideas on a remedy? Cheers from Texas. Basically what you're doing there is causing an earth loop. So isolating one of the sides, yeah, and also making sure that everything's powered properly. It's the tricky thing with a setup like that. In some setups, it won't sound like that at all, and other setups it will. Everything in those setups, it might be a pedal that you have 3 pedals down the chain that's actually causing the problem.
Yeah.
That, you know, a bad supply chip in the pedal or something is causing noise that's getting picked up on the H9. It's really difficult to sort of troubleshoot those without actually getting your hands
But that's what it is, an earth loop.
It could absolutely be an earth loop.
Yeah.
So you might need to isolate one side of the chain.
Yeah.
Coming back in.
It's why Dan and I bang on so much about isolated power, but that doesn't solve everything, does it?
No. It's okay. Think about your amplifier. A lot of the people who, if you're doing the 4-cable method and you're sending signals out to your board and then back into your, preamp, and you've got connections on the front and connections on the back panel. In a lot of amplifiers, they use a thing called a star ground, where all the ground points in an amplifier go to one common area, right? Which is a good, design practice. When you start connecting your signal, the earth, to multiple earth points, you can get an earth loop. And it's a similar thing can happen with pedals.
If you don't know what the 4-cable method is, it was something that became popular with multi-effects units. So, it doesn't have to be a multi-effects unit, but it became popular with multi-effects units because you could send the drives into the front of your amp and then come back out of your effects loop send, back into the multi-effects loop unit. Reverbs, delays, and all the other stuff only hits the effects loop. So it's a way of separating the drives into the front end and leaving the reverbs and delays in the effects loop in one unit. That's what the 4-cable method is.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Perfect. Well done.
Colin Giron says, question, I've been using an AC30 for years with either a Strat or a Tele.
Nice.
I've recently acquired a 68 Vibrolux Custom. Yes, you have. That's a cool amp. It seems my gain pedals sound a bit off. Any suggestions? Yeah.
Go back to using the AC30.
Yeah. It's a very different thing.
It is a very different thing. And if what you've done with the AC30, you have bought pedals and sculpted that tone to work with an amplifier, those pedals won't necessarily work with the Fender. It's one of those things that as soon as you hear that stuff, you can't unhear it. If you'd started off with that Fender, you might have probably bought different pedals that work better with that amplifier.
Yeah.
So
2 potential problems with the Vibrolux Custom. Now, if it was a normal Vibrolux or any other blackface Fender, I'd have said you've got a mid-scoop problem. So adding something like a TS Tube Screamer type into the mix would help rectify that. However, as it's a 68 custom one, they're a little bit more tweedy in nature, so some of that mid-range is back. But even then, you've still got quite aggressive top end. Now, there might be a bright cap on the
interesting.
On the input. So if by off, that's a great t-shirt. If by off, you mean your gain pedals sound a bit fizzy and nasty, it could be because the bright cap is adding too much brightness at the input, in which case you need to turn it up or have that bright cap removed.
Nice.
If they sound dull, don't know.
Yeah. Sit down and tweak and just see. Like, for example, I talk a lot about the hot cake with the AC30, but I don't really like it with any other amplifier. It sounds great, but it doesn't do the magic thing that it does into an AC30.
Yeah.
One of those things.
Dr. Andrew Perrin. Dr. Andrew Perrin. What are you a doctor of, Andrew? Been mulling on an ES335 type for a while, but unlikely a Gibson. Have you had any experience with Eastman guitars? Yes. Eastman produce a range of guitars from lesser expensive to more expensive, and the results are predictable. They're good. They're really good for the money. Pepin, who looks after Eastman in Europe anyway, is an associate of ours, and a lovely chap and an amazing singer.
Oh, cool.
So I feel warm towards Eastman Guitars.
Nice. Vibus Patil. Hello, Vibus.
Hello,
nice
Vibus.
to see you, mate. He says, I thought I'd share something. I got a Sir Badger 35
Oh, yeah.
and tried it through a reactive load and also a 1x12 with a V30. Recorded, the IRs sound great, but nothing comes close to the experience of sitting in front of the cabinet. Yeah, the very, very different experiences. But recorded guitar tone is a very different experience than sitting in front of a cabinet.
Yeah.
Everything's different.
Yeah.
Everything matters.
Great amp.
Matt Tucker says, hi guys, just got my TPS t-shirt in the mail. Forgive me if you've covered this already, but have you checked out the new JHS budget pedal line yet? Thoughts on these for the beginner's board? We've got them. And we're trying to, I've got some ideas, because it's one of those things where, how do I put this?
We don't want to do an advert for JHS's
we love
budget
Josh,
pedal line.
and we love JHS, and everyone's great. And obviously, we know Josh really well. He's been on the show a couple of times, 3 times, but we just got to be careful about the way that we present them.
We did the fuzzes because there was a story to tell there.
Yeah.
It was, these are 4 really key flavours of fuzz, and it's a good opportunity
Talk about it.
Help people understand that and indeed re-educate ourselves in that, as well as showing some new product. Seems to me the main sell of the 3 Series, is that what they're called?
I think so.
Something like that, they're called the 3 Series.
They're under $100 US.
Is price, that's it. It's like, here's a reasonable pedal for a sensible price. That's the reason it exists.
Yep.
So then we're into what else can you get for that kind of money? And TPS just has never really done that style of presentation.
No.
So we need to think about how we.
Yeah, there is a question there. There is an interesting question there that will.
The question to me is to take the back off, compare it to a £29
Tone City,
and go, what's the difference?
Yeah, right.
Why pay $100 for this made in the US when you can pay $29 for it, or $49 for it made in China? Lots of politically motivated arguments and answers to that question. But once you get into surface mount production, highly factoryized way of doing things, there's a great deal of
very interesting
sameness in what gets spat out the other end. All of which is to say we haven't actually looked at them yet, so I may be talking cobblers. But, if the race is to the bottom, I don't want to get there first.
Marvin Box says, hey guys, thanks for all of your advice. I've built my own wet-dry headphone rig. It's an Engel iron ball for dry and a Marshall MG100 effects for wet into my wireless headset, and it's awesome. Love you so much. That is brilliant.
I'm interested to know about latency into the wireless headset.
Yeah, right.
If you get much, because by the time you've done the twanging.
See, I'm so pushy in my beat. I get a bit of latency and I go, man, I'm so cool, I'm so groovy, I'm just laid back.
Jesse Lete, or Leet, pardon me, says, hey fellas, in the past you've commented on the Deluxe Reverb having flubby low end. Could you expand on that? P.S. Thank you for inspiring us all. You're welcome. It's amazing that we inspire anybody, but it seems to be that way, so thank you, Jesse. Lots of Fender amps, especially, lots of Fender amps. It might be the speaker and it might be the amp, but all the Fender amps I have, when you get them really loud and you hit it with loads of pedals, the bottom end just dies a bit.
Right.
And I think that's happening for 2 reasons. One is it takes a lot of power to produce bass frequency. So unless you attenuate that bottom end and knock it all off, the power amp's going, God, I need to produce all this bass. And it's working really hard, and then you're getting all the other great stuff we love about overdriving amps, like sag and compression and all of that stuff that we really love, and a lot of that happens in the bottom end. However, if what you want is clarity, volume, fidelity and all of that, you don't want that to happen. And I certainly think that if you come forward from Fender into Boogie and the whole Dumble lineage and all of that. What those amps had over the classic Fenders was a great deal of clarity and definition in the bottom end, achieved through bigger transformers, higher power, more efficient speakers, quite a bit of filtering in the bottom end. So that's what I mean when I say they flub out a bit, is that it's either the speaker or the power section just going, I can't take this, which is a really great sound, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But if you're not looking for it, then that's why I personally always gravitated towards 70s Twins, Boogies, stuff that just that didn't do that so much.
Totally.
Is that fair?
Totally.
Anything to add?
No, I mean, man, I play AC30s.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that the Matchless does has is this sort of almost sub element to it. It doesn't do that flabby bottom end thing, but it almost has this frequency underneath that you sort of feel.
Yeah.
And it's sort of different because it doesn't flub.
Yeah.
But you still, it flaps the back of your trousers when it's playing, I love that. But it doesn't do the farty speaker thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's all volume dependent, of course. So
of course it is, yeah.
You won't get a Fender amp flubbing out if it's, quiet.
Yeah, because that's energy.
Because it's not doing anything.
Yeah, of course.
So the Great Dell, sorry, I think I've
you go.
I've found some that you may have missed.
I've been trying, but I can't keep up.
The Great Dell, just wanted to say hi from the workbench after starting a pedal company
Hey!
with your advice. Nice one. You should have said what you're called, the Great Dell.
Great Dell pedals.
Great Dell pedals. Just built a fuzz for a customer, now onto a germanium boost with external bias and blendable clipping diodes. Congrats! And
Well
good
done.
luck.
Excellent. Yeah, good luck, mate.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's awesome. The Great Dell. The Great Dell.
Daniel Webb says, hi both, hope you're well. After the Tone Master episode, I went and bought the Deluxe Reverb and I love it. It's the perfect apartment amp. Thanks. That's brilliant, Daniel.
Woohoo!
Awesome.
Simon Goodship. The Goodship Simon. I bet you get called that all the time, don't you? Says, I built my first board. 14 pedals, all gig rig isolated power, Quartermaster 10, evidence cable. What the have you done to me? Question for Dan. Can you go right from a distributor to power the Quartermaster?
Yes, no problem.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's a good idea that you do that. The bigger Quartermasters take a bit more than 120.
They do. But yeah, that's no problem to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's for your first board, mate. That's amazing. Well done.
Congrats.
Yeah,
And
totally.
Please tell us what you think. Because presumably before that you were chaining a load of pedals together. Are you hearing a big difference? I'd love to know. Gary Roberts, love your show. What are your thoughts on using known, strong, well-tested NOS RCA preamp tubes versus some current built tubes? Have you any favourite new tubes you favour? 12AX7, 6V6 or 6L6s?
So, right.
I don't know much about this.
No. The funny thing is, it's not the Softec, it's the common 12AX7. Oh man, what are they? The sort of a newer brand. Anyway,
Tone
no.
Which is not a new brand, it's a reinvented brand.
Yeah, but yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, anyway. I've played a whole bunch of the new ones with the 12A JJs, and they all sound great. The preamp tube that I find the hardest to get right is an EF86 preamp tube, and I always end up spending ridiculous amounts of money on an old Mullard, and they just sound better. Those fuzz, they're so ridiculously sensitive and easy to break and stuff. And but 12AX7 tubes I find are fairly robust. The tube that's working hardest in the amplifier is probably the phase inverter. So it's the one that if I'm ever having problems with the preamp section, it's the tube I will change first. But generally, JJs, they all...
It's a tough one because modern amps are designed around modern tubes.
Yes, that's a very important thing.
So putting your NOS or indeed vintage valves into a modern amp may not always yield the results you want because they are designed around
different biasing and tolerance rates and stuff. Yeah.
It's not something that I've spent enough time with to really understand.
When I had my...
Which isn't to say it doesn't make a massive difference, because it does.
I had the Two Rock Jet.
Yeah.
years ago, and Simon Law came around, and we spent the whole day going through every tube, just A-Bing it. We spent the whole day doing it, and ended up with a vastly sounding different amplifier, just changing.
You know how much I love this amp.
Yeah.
When we lent it to Matt Schofield
Yep.
to record his last record, the first thing they did was change all the tubes.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Put the old ones back there when you received it back. I'm assuming.
Yeah. Didn't leave all the mullards in there.
Reese Richardson says, have either of you played with the Comet Ambicab? Wet, dry, wet rig in a box. Would absolutely love to see what you guys would do with it.
I want to hear it. This
Yeah,
is not the first time this subject has come up.
Yeah, interesting. There's some very interesting cabs on the market at the moment.
Yeah.
Maybe we could do an interesting cabs show.
There's a really interesting cab winging its way to me from Zilla if Paul's built it yet.
Oh, man. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that indeed.
Yeah, it's not interesting at all. It'd just be horrifically heavy, massive, and covered in fake croc skin. I've gone for brown croc skin, tan croc skin, and Vox grill.
Okay. Mate, are you going to get the matching head?
No, the head's going to be the Boogie 50/50.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, so
all right, fair enough.
Paul at Zilla is making me a Dumble style 412. We've had to search the internet, and I think it's going to look more like a Dumble than be constructed like a Dumble. Although, we have looked at some pictures and stuff and made some guesses on a few things. There's a really great, some guy has done a really brilliant photo diary of building one. Anyway, I decided I want a Dumble style 412 to go on the end of my ridiculous Boogie 50/50 power amp in the insane stereo rig. And he was saying, what do you want it covered in? And I said, well, croc skin, obviously.
Obviously.
So it's fake croc skin, like my Lone Star, with Vox grill. So I don't know how far he's got with it. I need to give him a call, actually.
Boy, oh boy.
Paul at Zilla makes great cabinets.
He does. John Williams says, hey guys, love your show. It has helped me get through a lot of deployments. Can you send merch to an APO or an FPO address? Currently in Iraq.
That's
Man.
a really good question. I don't know. We'll have to ask Catherine if that's possible. There's a couple of territories. We ship all over the world, and there's a couple of places we've just stopped shipping to because everything goes missing now.
Yeah.
I won't embarrass the places by saying where they are. So we don't ship to some places. But I would have thought that's entirely possible. If regular mail can be shipped there, then presumably we can ship there.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll find out for you. But thank you,
Yeah.
John. And lovely to hear from you, mate. And, stay safe and all that stuff.
Oisin O'Grady. Hi, Oisin. How are you? I've been waiting since 2016 for you guys to get a Deluxe Reverb. It was wonderful. Glad you liked it. I love mine. Yeah,
I'm smitten.
we really do like it.
Yeah.
We've got to get the hand-wired one, unfortunately.
Oh, man, that's going to ruin
I don't
me.
think you want to hear that.
No.
I've been enjoying your Instagram videos as well, Oisin. Nice one.
Anto H says, I have an AC15 and a Pro Junior, wet dry.
Nice.
But I'm moving home to Ireland next year. Can I use a step-down adapter for both without compromising the tone?
Well, it depends where you're moving from.
Yeah,
If you're
so
moving from America, you need to step up, don't you?
you would need a step-up transformer,
Yeah.
indeed. Yeah. So, yeah, you yes, you can. Will it sound the same? Oh, man, it's tricky because dealing with touring guys for so long, and there's always a question of does it sound the same with different voltages. I think it's actually less about the 120 versus 240 and more about the stability of the voltages at certain venues that they're playing. Would account for more than the harmonic differences in 50 and 60 hertz. But so, long story short, yes, it'll still sound great. Mappin's is closed now, isn't it? Wherever you get it, just go to
Amazon. Let's make Jeff Bezos even richer.
There you go. That's what he needs.
Adam Yu says, I haven't been able to go to a music store to try a 50s V or a 60s 2020 Les Paul neck. How would you describe them? I haven't played the 2021s, but in general, I see, 50s versus 60s. In general, right, 50s tends to be a little fuller with a bit more shoulder. And by shoulder, I mean... Here's a guitar neck I did not make yesterday. A couple of interesting widths on a guitar neck, right? Number one, the nut width, really important. Most electric guitars seem to be there or thereabouts, but some are thinner than others, and you may or may not like that. The next one everyone talks about is depth, right? So from the front of the fingerboard to the back of the neck here. That's what gives you your chunkiness in terms of, you know, is it a big or a small neck? However, just as important is if you look down the neck. So here's the thickest part, right, between the front of the fingerboard and the middle of the back of the neck. What's really important is how much meat you've got here on either side of that. That's what makes the thing C-shaped or D-shaped or V-shaped, right? So it might be that a 50s and 60s neck profile has an almost identical depth front to the back. I don't think they do. I think the 60s ones are slightly slimmer. But it might be that they are identical. The amount of shoulder you've got in that neck profile will make them feel radically, radically different. So in general, 50s necks tend to be a bit more shoulder and clubbier overall. So you've got more depth front to back and you've got more shoulder, so it feels rounder and clubbier. And the reason they call old tellies necks like baseball bats is because they're rounded, right? And they're quite thick and chubby. What happened at the end of the 50s at both Gibson and Fender, they started slimming their neck profiles down, and they did that in two ways. One was to make them thinner front to back, although a lot of vintage guitar necks actually get thicker considerably as you go out the neck. But they also started taking some of that shoulder out, so it feels much slimmer in the hand. So, having not played them, I would probably surmise that the 50s one is a bit thicker and a bit rounder, and the 60s one is a bit slimmer.
Yeah, it's a good generalisation. Brent Porter says, hey fellas, no notification from YouTube today, so sorry, I'm late to the party. I love the Deluxe Reverb show. How did it compare to the Tone King Imperial? Yeah, we talked about that before, didn't we? It's a different...
Yeah, it's a very different thing. The clean channels can be set up to sound pretty similar.
Yeah.
But the addition of that attenuator in the Tone King makes it...
Yeah, and the dirty channel in the Tone King is incredible.
Yeah. You know, hand on heart, I would say the Tone King is probably a better amp.
Sure.
But that, I'm pointing at the Deluxe Reverb.
Is Deluxe Reverb.
Even the reissues, and a lot of people got annoyed with us for using a reissue.
Yeah, but could you imagine the comments if we had a hand-wired one versus... I mean, yeah, come on.
It's the sound of ages, even in reissue form.
Yeah, totally.
So,
Brian Garcia says, hey lads, for recording a wet-dry wet rig, should I get a Zoom H6 to record and transfer to PC later, or an interface a la Focusrite with multiple inputs? Audio differences? Excited for your upcoming gig rig reveal, Dan. Thanks. Thank you, Brian. Something may or may not be happening this Thursday at 4 p.m.
We used an H6 for the first couple of years on TPS.
Yep, still use mine now for all the vlog stuff.
Yeah, I still use mine for vlog stuff.
Yep.
So the great thing about the H6 is twofold. Actually, it's manifold, but you've got four main XLR inputs. So depending on what you're recording, you can record 4 things at once, or you can stick another 2 in the top so you can record 6 things at once. Or the way we used to use it, which was brilliant, was 2 voices, 2 guitars, and then we'd use the stereo XY mic on the top as the room mic.
Brilliant.
And it's really brilliant.
It's so good.
The only downside to... And then, of course, we transfer to the computer, as you're saying, to do the editing. The downside to the Zoom was it doesn't have the fidelity of a really great interface. And by really great, I mean high-end.
Yeah.
But I would say it sounds every bit as good as normal mid-range cost-effective interfaces.
Totally.
Every bit as good. In fact, I think it actually sounded better than my Focusrite Scarlett.
I got the Scarlett as well, and I really like it. I think the A6 sounds better.
Yeah. And that might be the way that we've got the thing configured.
Yeah.
The other thing that's brilliant about the H6 is it is so easy to use. and the batteries last forever.
Yeah.
So in fact, there is an H6. So the way we record this today, these microphones above our heads here and the mics on the guitar amps run into a Universal Audio Apollo 8P interface. That does all the clever stuff, like adds all the bells and the whistles. No, that's where we do all the pitch fixing and noise reduction and all that. We don't do any of that. Anyway, there's stereo outs coming that are being recorded on an H6 for the podcast. So we still use the H6 all the time. We love it dearly. Unless you need to record more than 4 XLRs at once, or 6. And if you want to have it all straight in the DAW so that you don't have to be transferring stuff. Of course, the other fantastic thing about the H6 is it's portable. Mm-hmm. So you can just take it to rehearsals, gigs, wherever you want to go, and you don't have to lug a computer and an interface.
Yeah, it's all there.
It's
great.
Honestly couldn't really recommend it highly enough. We were using H6s on Guitarist magazine at least a couple of years before I left. Right. So how long ago is that? 10 years ago? Maybe not quite that much, but blooming a long time ago anyway. And there it is, still being used.
Unreal.
Sorry for the long-winded response, Brian, but I feel quite passionately about that little thing.
This is great. Jason Krepsey says, hello, what do you reckon I'd need a buffer-wise, for a 15-pedal setup? Currently, the only buffer that I'm aware of is my Polytune 3 after all my drive pedals. I don't have any germanium fuzz yet. So it was interesting in the buffer show. You saw what happened when we moved the buffer further down the chain. And all that stuff has an effect. Now, I really like having a buffer after my drives. And I think having that after your drives is a really good place for it. And it may be that you don't need another one. If you have even a Boss pedal in its bypass state as a buffer, so you can try that after as well. But it might be that if the bypass in those pedals is good, because there's true bypass and there's true bypass. But it may be that if the true bypass in those pedals is good, that buffer is doing a good enough job. It all depends on how low the output impedance of that buffer is and how much loading you've got in your signal after that point. So it's just maths, basically. But the most important thing, if it sounds good, it is good, So try moving the buffer in different positions. But I really like having a buffer after the drive pedals. I love having the drive pedals seeing the output inductance of the coil. The inductance of the coil and the output impedance of the pickups. That works really well for me. So yeah, I think you might be golden. But it all depends on the pedals.
Yeah, and as he alluded, if you've got a couple of Boss pedals on there already, you already have a couple of buffers on there.
Yeah.
The comments are delayed. We're back to high gain. Gaston says high gain is Pantera. Of course it is.
Yeah, right.
Dimebag. Ars Arkle says he just bought a Victory Super Kraken. Great high gain amp. Great amp, full stop.
Great, absolutely.
Yeah. Weezer Blue Album, that's high gain, says Beep Beep Lettuce.
A lot of Mesa Boogie on that album, wasn't there?
I think there's a lot of Mesa Boogie wherever you hear high gain.
Right.
Dave Friedman amplifiers, of course, they look incredible and sound incredible, says Don Retberg.
Still waiting for that shipment.
Grisha Oo says, have you guys considered changing your channel name? I think that Boomer show fits well. I'm mortally offended. Dan and I are the children of boomers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The fact that we may appeal to people of that demographic is,
it's lovely.
It may be as it is. There are other things that appeal to that demographic that definitely do not appeal to me and Dan, so I don't particularly want to identify with them. Thank you very much.
Wallace Dye says, hey guys, love the show. Always wondered, what's the best pizza joint in London? Thin crust, thick crust, or deep dish?
Never deep dish, never thick crust, always thin.
Always sourdough.
Yeah, you basically get thrown out of Italy if you have a deep dish pizza.
You do.
So,
the Pizza Express in Soho, great jazz gig.
And you'll pick up a good jazz gig there too. That's why.
That's why it's my favourite.
Fraser's like, you can't recommend Pizza Express. No, we can't. Not for the pizza.
No, but they're for the ambiance.
But you might see the Steve Gadd band or the Michael Landau band.
I did a gig there, and I turned up early, and there was a band rehearsing while I was waiting to do sound check, and the gentleman says, "Oh, sorry, we're just running a little bit late." I said, "Oh, it's fine, mate. It's absolutely fine." And I hadn't been here long at that time, and I'm thinking, his drum setup looks familiar, and I'm looking over at the drum kit, and it's from King Crimson. What's his name? Oh man, he's like one of my favourite drummers.
Him.
Fraser. He played drums on Red and King Crimson.
Oh God!
Hang on, it'll come to me. Bill Bruford.
Yes,
it was Bill Bruford.
Brain fart.
So I looked at the drum case and said, "Bill Bruford." I'm like, "No way!" So I got to chat to him for like 10 minutes after. He was lovely.
He lives in Bath. Or he used to live in Bath.
He's doing this piano and like 8 sax players. And all this music that he's written. He says, we're playing in Cheltenham tomorrow.
One
come
sax
on
player's
down.
bad enough.
They were amazing. Anyway, I got to meet Bill Bruford.
Did they harmonise Baker Street? That's what I want to know.
Very good.
O'Sheen again. Hi, O'Sheen says, what do you think of Josh Scott's video, Vintage versus Reissue Pedals? He was very passionate and irritated by people's nostalgia.
Yeah, okay. I thought it was a really good video with those particular pedals that he...
So what he's saying, I don't know why everyone worries about vintage pedals, it's just stupid.
He's saying that with the reissues of... He had some reissues from like a reissue Rat versus an old Rat.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And it was really cool. And you played them in context and had Nick on drums. And it sounded really great. However, there are some things that I don't agree with. Like, because you can have reissues and originals, but you still have your favourites. Why do you have your favourites? Because they connect with you in a certain way. Now, it might be that you can't tell the difference with a drummer and stuff. Awesome. But I can guarantee you that I've got a big box Rat, and for me, that sounds better than all my other Rats. And that doesn't have the LM308 chip in it either. But it's just a really great sounding pedal, and it's old and the resistors have drifted in a certain way, but it does sound great. I have, like my old electric mistress, nothing sounds like that. Even the new Thorpe, which I love to bits, it still doesn't sound the same as that. So I really like cutting through all the mythology.
Yeah, the notion of being attached to something just because it's old is ridiculous.
Totally.
Unless it's your dog or something like that.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. But there are certain pedals that I have my favourites of that do connect with me in a certain way.
Chris Buck came to see us last week, brought in his 62 Strat that's just been refurbed. We played that 62 Strat, my 61 Strat, the one that's on loan to me, and all the other Strats, and the two old guitars sounded palpably better than all the new guitars. So it's not just mumbo jumbo, but it might be that not all things are better than all new things. And if that's what Josh was banging on about, P.S. he is trying to sell new pedals.
But these were reissues of stuff,
right?
It was really interesting.
Yeah, I think Josh is really good at asking
relevant questions,
relevantly obvious questions that if you haven't been playing the guitar for 40 years, are interesting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Or if you haven't been stupidly spoilt and privileged in the way that Dan and I have to engage with all new gear all the time for decades.
Sure.
Some of those things just get answered in the process of doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the clone thing is a really interesting example. We have got loads of clones on the show, but whenever we plug in your original clone, it does something. Now, do we see that thing and all of a sudden there's a reverence there that we have for that and we listen to it differently? I don't know, and to be honest, I don't care.
No,
whenever we put that on the board and we plug that in, there's something epic
Yeah,
that
I don't care
happens.
if it is psychosomatic at that
Yeah,
point.
totally.
Because psychosomatic is real.
Yep.
Hang on, 6-string overdrive. Hey guys, can you get a deluxe reverb to sound close to the Derek Trucks tone with 57 PAF pickups? I want a super reverb, but will never be able to crank it. Okay, Derek Trucks is one of those people who I genuinely think it doesn't matter what he plays.
Yeah.
They say that about Gilmour, they probably say it about Van Halen. Now, Van Halen did need a cranked Marshall.
He did.
Or a cranked amp, you know, and a particular kind of guitar to sound like him. Derek Trucks, it has such a uniquely vocal... It's literally, I mean, it's a cliche, isn't it? One note. It's like, that's Derek Trucks.
Yep. I remember listening to the first...
Yes is the answer. I think you could do as
Yeah,
well
yeah.
with the Deluxe as you could with the Super. There is something about the sound of 10s,
Yeah.
10-inch speakers
Yeah.
that I think there's an interesting phase relationship with 4 10-inch speakers in one box. So maybe the multiple speaker thing is slightly part of it.
Sure.
Sorry, Dan, I interrupted.
Just going to say, I have listened to the first 5 seconds of the album songlines, and you listen to that could be no one else in the world doing that. It's just divine.
Yeah.
It's like that's the price of admission there in the first 5 seconds. Just amazing. I saw that tour actually. He was just wonderful.
He's up there, is Derek.
Yeah.
When will you guys release an album, says ASM75. Current progress about 2041.
I have got. I'm looking at doing something. Having a jam in November. So, because I was in a band, Tin Spirits, for 10 years, and that was no more. Started doing this EP, and found it was fun. It was really fun writing the songs. When it actually came to trying to produce them myself, I found out something about myself that's invaluable, is that I'm not a producer. I find that really hard and actually quite dull. Anyway, I was talking to my old bandmates, and because we had a bunch of songs that we didn't finish recording, and they said, "Do you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great, let's do it." But Dave Gregory had finished with Big Train at the time, and he just wasn't feeling doing anything else at the moment.
Yeah.
And we all love him dearly. Anyway, talking to my dear friend, Mr. Paul Stacey. So we're going to have a play with Paul
Oh, wow.
and see if we can do some stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, he is a producer.
Now, he is a producer, and he's also one of my favourite guitar players. And just,
So you don't really need to be in a band then, is that what you're saying?
well, probably, yeah, right. I hadn't thought that through, had I? No. Okay, fair enough.
Actually, that is a glib comment. The best thing you can do is to be in a band with somebody infinitely more experienced than you, isn't there?
Totally.
Because
Yep.
the learning that you achieve in that environment is massive.
Yeah. Oh, man, totally. Whenever I'm hanging around with Paul, I learn so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens, but it could be really fun.
That's cool,
It'll be,
man. That's
I mean,
really
it'll
cool.
be prog, like proper
That'd be
disappearing. Yeah, but it'd be great fun.
That'd
It'd
be
great
awesome. It's that kind of, I think if one thing dear old COVID has shown us is that interaction with humans in music is
Oh,
something
my
that's very hard
goodness.
to live without.
Man alive.
Very, very hard to live without.
Yeah.
Brad Hawkins.
Brad Hawkins.
Have you got a recommendation for a 30 to 50 watt amp head for a 212 cab, vintage 13 G12? As a pedal platform, I want nice bass response for classic rock. I've got a Dirty Shirley overdrive and a Strymon rear side. Dan's going to say a matchless HC30 because that ticks every single box that you've just asked for, but it is like $5,000, so that's up to you.
That's what I'm going to say, though.
Yeah.
Or if not, Matchless Chieftain.
Depends how loud you can play.
They did a 50 watts, though.
Yeah, because that's Dan's Matchless is among the louder amps we own.
crazy, isn't it?
It's insanely loud, even at 33 watts or whatever
I've
it is.
discovered something about that amplifier.
Right.
So it was got a text from Paul Davids, and because he's just recently got his matchless, and I want to build a rig for him, right? So we're just getting some ideas together. And he says, I use the collider, but I want to use it in the loop. And I'm like, yeah, well, the collider works great in the loop. He goes, well, not the matchless. And I had a look. The output voltage from the preamp of the matchless is insane.
Has it even got a loop then?
It does. It has 2 loops, one for each channel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Now, trying to work that out because, anyway, it is crazy, right? And I remember the matchless had a pedal called the matchless Hotbox,
Yeah.
which was the matchless preamp and a pedal, and it was the loudest pedal I've ever heard in my life. And like, it was off, and then you just turn it on, it was too loud.
So it's killing the...
And the output is so crazy. So this is the thing with amps effects loops. A lot of that magic happening in the mattress is that crazy voltage hitting the power tubes. You know, and we're talking about those cascading gain stages.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, what's happening there. And all that love hitting those power tubes. And, you know, as soon as I try to attenuate that, it goes.
It's all gone.
The magic goes.
Interesting.
So interesting.
So you want a mid-power amp head for your 212 as a nice pedal platform. Yeah, so Dan's matchless notwithstanding, what else would we say? Any of the Morgans, like the RCA series, I think it's RCA, is it? There's a 35 and a 22, might not be RCA. Any
Victory.
Morgan is great. Victory V40.
Victory V40, I think, is a fantastic
really good
choice.
shout and very sensibly priced. What else? I don't know where you are in the world, Brad, but some of the Mesa heads are fantastic.
Yeah.
So Lone Star, Cali Tweed. Cali Tweed's probably not headroomy enough for a dedicated pedal platform.
Heartbreaker?
Long gone.
Really?
Yeah, you'd only find one second hand.
They're really good.
100 watts.
The Jeff Buckley Mesa, the one we saw in
Rectiverb.
Anderson's. The Rectiverb.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Some of the mini Mesas, so they do 25 versions of the Rectifier and the Rectiverb. A couple of other things, probably really good value in the US. Dr. Z makes a fantastic range of amps. I would definitely check out Dr. Z.
Dr. Z.
We said
very good shout.
Morgan. Friedman Dirty Shirley is a blooming brilliant
Amazing.
amplifier.
Yeah.
There's a lot out there. There's a lot of really great amps. But you know the sounds you like. You know the guitar players you like.
Totally.
I would follow your heart and your gut.
Get a 50-watt high watt.
Don't do that.
Dave Oshman says, hey from Texas. The Dope Priest. Oh my God.
Hang on, 6-string overdrive again says, what smaller Fender amp is like a reduced super reverb? I want a super but will never get to crank it. Well, the Deluxe Reverb, and there is a 2x10 Fender...
Princeton?
No, it's 210s. It is the... Maybe that's the Vibe Reverb, but I don't think they make it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, Deluxe Reverb is... They did a Deluxe Reverb in a head for a minute there.
Did they?
Yeah, if you could find one of those used, run that into a 210 cab, that would be pretty cool.
Oh, 410. Dave Oshman says, hey from Houston, Texas. The Dope Priest. Oh my God. A bit pricey though. Is there anything out there that can get me close for a little less dollars? The Dope Priest is so dynamic audio manifestations, I believe. Is that right?
What is it? A Big Muff?
It's a very special Big Muff.
Right.
You know, according to some people, just get a reissue and plug that in and be exactly the same. Actually, no. The Dope Priest is the weird thing about that Dope Priest is it's fat, but it has this awesome mid-range in it that I love. So try out some Pi reissues, some triangle head reissues. Like the earlier Muff reissues will get you closer for a little less cash. But that thing does sound insane. I love it.
Thorpe Muffroom Cloud.
Thorpe Muffroom Cloud. There you go.
Which isn't called the Muffroom Cloud, it's called the Fallout
Fallout
Cloud.
Cloud. There you go.
Is exceptional. We
Yes.
like everything Thorpe makes. I guess the JHS muffletter, so you can flick through all those different muffs.
Yeah, that's a really good shout, actually.
But tonally, I don't think we thought it was in the same game as the Fallout Cloud.
My favourite sound of that was the actual JHS
Yeah.
muff on there. But the Fallout Cloud is like super flexible and really awesome sounding thing. David Braniff says, "Hey guys, didn't get Rhett to sort me out a dry wig yet, but I got my first interface for my birthday last week. Mic'd cab versus emulated out. Discuss." Well, first thing I'll discuss is that I've been having online conversations with Rhett, and what a lovely guy he is. So as soon as all this craziness be done, I want to go and do something with Rhett at some point.
Cool.
Because he's great.
He is great. He is absolutely great. Mic'd cab versus emulated out. Discuss. A mic'd cab in the right room with the right mic and the right pre, recorded well, is incomparable to any other way of doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Crappy mic, crap room,
Me at the desk.
rubbish interface, no decent mic pre, use the emulated out.
Yep.
The emulated out is a great way of doing it easily, quickly, and even perhaps quietly in a very consistent manner. But if you've got a great room and a really nice mic, you'll have much more fun doing that.
Totally. Pedalboard says, "Missed my super chat. Sorry, mate. This guy's flying up." He says, "Love the show, gents. I realise neither of you love effects loops and amps, but I'd really love to see how you review delays like the DD500 and Timeline in an effects loop." So we are going to do a show soon
Super delays.
with those delays. But like I was saying before with effects loops, it's really interesting. Like every preamp is different, and they're gonna react differently to pedals. Like, every source is different. So
Brown sauce, red sauce,
all that stuff.
barbecue sauce.
Yeah, I've been watching this amazing show on Netflix, American Barbecue Champion, and it's just the best thing ever. That they're smoking they take this like the whole pig and they've got to build the pit and then smoke this thing over like 14 hours. And man, it's wonderful. So but yes, we will.
Vegetarians,
We will.
vegans.
We will look at that because it is an interesting thing. I think amps effects loops are an interesting thing to have a look at anyway. And you will see, well, I believe at the end of the show, you'll see why Mick and I, with the right amplifier, we just like plugging straight at the front.
Yeah, the only reason you ever need to use an effects loop is if you've got gain running in the amp.
Mm-hmm.
So if the amp itself is overdriving, then an effects loop is a really good idea if you want a clean sounding delay. Dan and I always have our amps overdriving a tiny bit once they're overdriven by pedals. So yes, the delays can sound a bit squishy and a bit nasty, but that's why we use analog delays and really lovely stuff instead of like modern mega digital delays in the most part, because they really do sound horrible in the context of how we want them to sound if you overdrive them too much. Now, Dan used a Timeline for years.
Yep.
Into the front of all manner of vintage type amps with a ton of gain in the front, and
Epic.
never been happy.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah. So there is, as much as I've had this conversation with the guys at Anderton's a lot, Lee and Pete just cannot get their heads around not running the delay in the loop of the amp. It's like, well, what did we do before 1970, whenever the first effects loops came along?
Yep.
All the awesome guitar tones were made before then.
Mm-hmm. Right. Noel Hextra says the gig page is counting down, maybe a sneak peek to what is going to be on here. Thank you, Noel. I wasn't aware that there was a countdown or anything.
Really?
No, it's all news to me.
Are you suggesting that there may be a gig rig announcement this week, Dan?
I don't know if there might be something at Thursday at 4 p.m.
Really?
I'm not quite sure.
Oh, that's really interesting. There might
Not
be
of an exact
something,
time.
might be a new product. I'd just like to revise what I said about all the great guitar sounds being made before 1977. It is clearly cobblers. It's not true. Lots of great guitar sounds were made after that using effects loops. except that they were probably really amazing effects loops made with impedance correcting machines on the end of big rack systems. You know, like all that trouble that people like Michael Landau went through.
Yeah. All the Cornish stuff.
And all the great players through the sort of mid-late 80s and into the 90s struggled so hard with all of those issues we just talked about. Overdriven front end, really nice sound, digital delays and reverbs. And the effects loop in the guitar amp does enable you to overcome a lot of that. Yeah. But, great pedals, great amp. It doesn't have to be that way.
Sure.
Having said that, I'm just building a rig that is exactly that, using valve preamp pedals and then delays and reverbs after into a power section. So that was a helter-skelter of opinion.
Gabriel Rodriguez says, to my fellow 1.3k viewers, we've got 1,300 people sat watching us going on.
1,300 people throwing tomatoes at the screen going, Mick, you do not know what you're talking about.
Says, to my fellow 1,300 viewers, let's not forget to hit the like button.
Thank you.
Not everyone can donate, but we can all afford that.
Poo Ninja said that as well. Thank you,
Click,
Poo
and
Ninja.
these two apostles of tone deserve it. Thanks to the whole TPS team. Wow.
Asshole, maybe. Bursts of Tone says, thoughts on the Sir hand-wired SL68 Plexi? Well, it's going to be good, isn't it?
It's going to be good.
If it's hand-wired and it's a 68 type Plexi, it's going to be good, especially from Sir.
The 68 Plexi, is that... What was the Van Halen amp? It was around then, I think.
Literally no idea. The Van Halen amp would have been massively modded, surely.
Well, it was the main thing about it was the attenuator.
Right.
The Variac. The Variac.
Yeah.
To bring the voltage down to about 88 volts. Apparently that's where it all started to happen. So saith Mike Soldano.
Soren Leder, thank you, Soren.
Hey, Soren. Hope you're doing well, mate.
Also for buying a label maker, and thank you for your continued generosity, mate.
Yeah, thank you. That's very kind of you, buddy. Marvin Box says, I've got no latency. It's an Arctics... Sorry, this is Martin with the wet-dry headphone rig.
Yes.
He says, I've got no latency. It's an Arctic 7 gaming headset with direct input to the wireless transmitter. So, interesting. Does that mean it's an analog wireless? High frequency?
Oh.
I don't know.
Yes, it could be.
Could be.
Could be. If it's
they're illegal.
Not digital, yeah. No, they're not illegal. They're just regulated differently in different nations. Zach Mythos says, Deluxe Reverbs have way more bass coming through the tone stack than they really need, in my humble opinion.
Sure.
Yeah, Zach knows what he's talking about.
Yep.
Martin Ronke says, he's in Switzerland, he says, hi guys, I have a PRS with piezo and a Katana 50 and I want a wet-dry setup. Piezo, oh interesting, or piezo if you're in the United States. Wet Katana, does the second amp have to be a transistor amp too? I would say don't worry too much, because if what you're saying is you want to split the piezo from the, or piezo from the, or piezo from the regular pickups, I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Right.
Because it's going to be so different, the sound is going to be so radically different anyway.
Yeah, but there's still a time link there, isn't there? Because it's coming from the same source, like sort of.
But the phase relationship is going to be completely different, isn't it?
No, I wouldn't. The frequency relationship. I mean, it's. I wouldn't. Look, you're right though. You are right. I wouldn't worry too much about it at this point. It's tricky. Just try it and see. Try it and see. Drew A says, Dan, just got my first Ash Tally. Any tips for keeping the low E from slipping off the saddle? How do I get it to stay put long enough to seat itself? Okay.
What?
So the low E string slipping off the saddle.
Huh.
I don't know.
Okay, Dan likes the knurled steel saddle, so that's not a problem. But if you pick up Butters for a second, you'll see it has a flat barrel saddle. You could, I'm sure, people make aftermarket saddles for tellies, and especially when they're intonation compensated as well. It might be that you can just pick up a new set of saddles, and somebody might do one that has a knurled string slot.
Yeah. I use pretty heavy strings as well, so they tend to grab fairly quickly.
Yeah. Check out if I don't. God, I'm not a Telecaster person. I assume the top of that saddle is flat. It doesn't have a string slot in it. Is that right?
This is round.
Yeah. Sorry. What I meant was there's no.
Oh, there's no string slot. No, you're right.
No
you're
string
right.
groove.
No, you're right. There's no string groove.
Have you worn one into it? Because it's brass.
Maybe.
So there is one there.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. It might be that somebody does an aftermarket saddle that's got a groove in there that it'll sit in. But sorry, my knowledge on that's not great.
Right, we have got so many super chats to get through. It's
no
10
more
to,
super chats,
so no more
please.
super chats, guys. Man, thank you guys so much. This is amazing.
Let's hammer through these then. Patrick Carroll, will the ZVEX Octane 3 be on TPS? The Johnny Octave was. I don't know the difference between the Octane 3.
I think they're quite different.
Are they?
Yeah.
Maybe. Patrick, no current plans to do so, but if we work out what it is and there's a relevant question, let's do that.
Indeed. Chom Chom says, hey, top fellas. Sanding rear of guitar neck to remove lacquer. Any tips, do's, don'ts? You are a pair of aces.
I would say don't.
I would agree.
The most I ever do on mine is just take it down a bit and mat it off a bit. I did it on an Eric Johnson Strat once and regretted it forever.
Yeah, and I did
the guitar just sounded worse
Yes,
after.
I did it on a Strat once, and it had a thick poly on the neck. I thought, I know what I'm going to do. Take that off, and it killed the sound of that guitar.
My reverse headstock Strat, I just took that down and I used some wet and dry, and I didn't take it all the way through. I just took it down and matted it off.
And it feels great, the guitar.
It does feel great. I went
really
through on the
nice.
fingerboard in a couple of places, but it's... Oh, yeah, okay.
Andrew Bentley says, hi, last couple of shows have been killer. I just got an ARDX20. Yeah,
Yes,
you did.
I put mine back on my pedalboard today because I was talking to Joey Landreth last night, who's just bought one. I was like, I remember that delay.
He says, which is awesome, and ends my delay search. How do you guys set the internal dark switch?
I didn't even know
there
it
was
had one. So Dan and I set ours as it comes out of the factory.
Solar Gatira, message retracted. But thank you. And David Burke says, for a hand-wired deluxe reverb, check out the amp clone from Poland. And then let me know what you think, as I'm tempted but can't find many reviews. Yeah. Okay. I don't think that's going to happen. Unless, I don't know. It could happen.
Yeah, it's tough. There are so many cloners, and like Stereotone's a really good example of that with all the Dumbles. Yeah, I don't know. Where do you stop?
Yeah. Jitterbug says, but the JC40 has stereo ins, so why no wet dry?
Can it do wet dry in the amp then?
Well, it's got the stereo. It's got the. It has the JC. It's got the Boss Chorus, the CE1 circuit in there. Remember we did the show with the JC120?
Yeah.
We mic'd up the wrong speaker. I don't know if it's got a stereo input and
We
that
need
fits.
to try it.
Yeah, because obviously there's two power amp sections in there. If there are two separate preamp sections that you can access, then you can do wet dry with it.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, that's it. That is really interesting. Smarmy Doofus says, "Hey guys, thank you for being engaging and informative, and thank you for inspiring my husband to give me a wet dry setup and build me a pedal board for my recent birthday.
Yes,
Thanks to you.
awesome.
Congrats.
Happy birthday."
Solo Guitarra says, great show as always. Thoughts on V30 Celestian Chinese versus UK. Where can I buy the UK one, and what about the Alnico Cream? Okay, don't listen to Bob Rock on the subject. He only buys the old the old ones. So I was going to honk Bob Rock then. That would have been ridiculous. I think the best thing we can say is that the Chinese ones compared to the old British ones are more variable, and lots of people like them less.
Oh, okay, interesting. Phil Mingan says,
Celestian Alnico Cream, Dan, what do you think of it?
So, Celestian Alnico Cream. Yes, I like it.
Alnico Blue, bright, loud, awesome, distorts earlier. Alnico Ruby, weird, rolls off a
Very dark.
tremendous amount of high end, which me and him don't understand.
No.
Alnico Gold, really fantastic, great sounding all-round speaker. Alnico Cream, higher power version of that.
Yes.
The anomaly is the Ruby. Don't understand why they did that.
Yeah, it's weird.
Anyway.
Phil Mingan says, guys, I never buy a pedal unless you guys and Pete Thorne all like it. My board is Mick and Dan approved. Thanks for all you do.
Thank you, Phil.
Cheers, mate. That's amazing.
Mad Crafter says, I just built a hand-wired 65 Deluxe Reverb. Next, there are 63 JTM 45 and a Dumble ODS. Adding my 95 Groove Tube Solo 75 wet, dry, wet.
Wet, dry, dry, wet.
Wow. You're obviously a man of some talent there, Mad
Amazing.
Crafter.
Wow. That's very cool, mate. Well done.
Thigo Mara says, hi guys, greetings from Brazil. Hello to Brazil.
Ciao.
I'm setting a crazy dual wet-dry setup using a Marshall Origin 20, dry 1, H&K Tube Meister,
Nice.
18, dry 2, Vox AC15, wet 1, and Fender Hot Rod Deluxe, wet 2. Any thoughts about matching? Try and get all the gain roughly the same.
Yeah.
So that the headroom and gain characteristics are roughly similar.
Yep.
And then you're going to have God's own job getting them all in phase.
Yeah. That's the thing. So just start with one, get the next amp to that, make sure that's in phase, next amp to that, one at a time, go through. But yeah, that sounds like a fun rig. Alex Russ says, hello guys, what do you recommend to plug a multi-effects processor like a head rush into studio monitors or guitar cabinet, and which one? Thank you. Alex, we don't have a huge amount of experience with those things. There are loads of other people that do. But for me, a guitar cabinet is always a more fun experience. However, if what you've got is a little setup at home and you've got some monitors there.
Yeah. So what you've got with the studio monitors is there'll be some amplification, whether it's coming from if they're power studio monitors or however else you power your studio monitors. The benefit you have there is that there is amplification. You will need some sort of speaker simulation. Now, the head rush may have speaker sim in it. Excuse my ignorance for not knowing that. So after the head rush, you need something that simulates speakers and amplification and then speakers, right?
Yep.
If you go into the guitar cabinet, you're going to need some amplification. So something in between the head rush and the guitar cab, you will need an amplifier of some kind, but you won't need speaker simulation because the guitar cab is doing it.
Yeah, great.
For low volume, awesome experience of stereo sounds, really enjoyable playing experience at low volume studio monitors every day of the week for something like a head rush multi-effects processor.
Cool. Amory Penna says, hello again, guys. As a lefty wanting to upgrade my guitar pickups, will regular ones sound different from what they are intended to on my guitar? Do I need lefty pickups? I like the BK63 veneer, but they are right-handed. You will be fine as long as the magnets, if you like single coils, as long as the magnets are the same.
Now I'm confused. Right-handed guitar.
Oh, hang on. Yes, okay.
Left-handed guitar.
Yeah, and the pole size, the pole spacing, heights are different. It depends on the guitar. If there was like a telly flat pole thing like this, if the magnets are all the same, then you'd be fine. But yeah, if you're talking about Strats, but never held Hendrix back.
My brain can't even deal with that.
Yeah. So it's upside down. You're going, back to front.
Can't you just turn the pickup round?
Then
it's facing the back of the guitar.
Facing the wrong way. It won't fit in the. Yeah. Tricky. Interesting. Very interesting.
Some of the coolest guitar players ever have been left-handed.
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, Albert King, Doyle Bramall. Who else have we missed? And some others. And maybe part of their uniqueness.
Macca.
Paul McCartney, yeah, great, good shout. Kurt Cobain, have come from the idiosyncratic nature of having to mould into left-handedness.
Mike Van Art.
So while it is extremely annoying that not everything that's available right-handed is available left-handed, maybe, what's the quote? From adversity comes
Nightmares.
Creativity or something like that?
Yeah, and that too.
Triumph.
Eating disorders.
Basically, the limitations of it is what gives you the opportunity for it. So
Yes.
that's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm going to say use it to be creative. Sorry, that's probably really condescending.
Justin Baylog says, I found TPS during lockdown. Now I'm running a Wildwood Spec Custom Shop R8.
Oh, that's a nice guitar.
Far out, man. Cali76, Barber Burn Unit, Mythos,
Mjolnir.
thank you, Volante, Walrus Trem, DC2, all powered by a G2 into a Tweed and Fox Wet Dry. Love you guys. Keep being rad.
Sorry, Justin, but thanks for being with us.
Justin, that's amazing, mate. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you. And Ishinri U Kid, man, thoughts on the Dirty Shirley pedal. Also, Dan, BJJ or judo? BJJ every day of the week. Although I am working on my judo at the moment, which is fun, but yeah, BJJ is just a lot more practical. Dirty Shirley pedal.
I haven't heard it.
No, haven't heard it, but look, if
Dave's
designed it,
Friedman knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And Captain Total Waffle says, just sent a few friends home from the Waffle Hut. Now I can finally get to follow your lovely stream whilst doing the dishes. Thanks for being you. Cheers, Captain Total Waffle.
We are certainly coming to see you one day.
Absolutely. That's going to be great.
Yeah.
Matthew Anderson says, G'day, lads. Restrung my Floyd with same gauge and the bridge raised almost 2 inches in the tail. Terrifying. Any idea how to fix? Also, have you tried the Marshall Origin 50 head?
Sounds like you've lost a spring.
Yeah, interesting.
Have you lost a spring?
Is it the same brand? So if it's the same gauge but a different brand, there may be differences there.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be, but...
do you really mean 2 inches? 2 inches is insane. That's like that. It's like that. Maybe you mean 2 millimeters? 2 inches is crazy. Something is very, very wrong there.
Yeah.
Marshall Origin 50 head.
Stop it.
I haven't played one.
No, we don't. We haven't done the Origin series. Yeah.
Brent Porter, any experience with amp head switchers? I want to switch 6 heads wet dry interchangeably without moving cables. Maybe a new gig rig product. I had the Voodoo Lab one, which I think could do 4.
Okay. So the tricky thing with head switches is that when you switch the head, you also need to switch in a load on the speaker cabinet.
Yeah. So the Ampete one is the one that's available and lots of people use.
Yep.
But we think there's some weird impedance business going on, don't we?
We didn't have a great experience with it.
But we were hearing it in adverse
It
conditions.
was really, absolutely. So we'd have to get one and try it out.
Yeah.
Delta, he says, been looking at the Guru's 1959 double-decker preamp pedal and noticed it has its own effects loop. If using with a switching system like G2 or ES8, where should it be in the signal chain? Well, the thing is, if it's got its own preamp, but you've got it in a loop switcher, it depends on where that preamp is in the circuit of the pedal. If it's just a loop before the output of the pedal, then you don't need to worry about it. However, because you can just use, loops and things in your switcher. But what you can do is you can basically isolate the different parts of the pedal pre and post with different loops of your switcher. It's a little bit complicated, but it can be done. But in all honesty, I would simply try that. If you really like the sound of the preamp, simply use it as a preamp and put the things that you want to have after that, before it hits the power amp, in loops after the preamp, and there you'll be good to go.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I'd need a diagram.
Yeah, I think
Matt Presley, we really have to hammer through because Fraser's going to London tonight, so he's got to be out of here. Matt Presley says, somebody make me a fried peanut butter and banana sandwich. Are you sure you're not Elvis Presley? I'm going to eat
Danger that way leadeth.
I am totally going to try that. That sounds crazy good.
Simon Keith says, HP Sauce versus Daddy's. Who reigns supreme? Go.
I'm HP really all the way. Dan doesn't eat stuff like that. I bought a Vintera Jazzmaster. Thanks for convincing me, Mick, says D Tyler 5603.
Very nice.
Cool, you're welcome. Hopefully Fender can pay me a commission.
Crooked Tooth Production says, reshuffling my board for the 1,000th
I really
time.
hope you like it.
Reshuffling my board for the 1,000th time. Do you have a consistent board or favourite board over the years that we can see anywhere? Hugs and kisses, boys.
No, I came in this morning and completely tore my pedal board apart and built it again, as happens pretty much every week.
Yep.
Because when we film, someone says, oh, can we use that? And it's like, oh, it's on mixed board. So no consistent pedal board.
Thank you, Chase Wood. That's very generous. And we're at the end.
Really?
We're at the end.
Peter Y says, did you drop the McMull? Is this any good of a guitar?
McMulls
Peter,
are great.
They make really spectacularly
Beautiful.
good guitars.
Yep. Right, there we go.
Have we really finished?
We've really finished.
Chase Wood. Thank you, Chase Wood. Did we say thank you to Chase Wood?
Yes, I said thank you to Chase Wood.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so look, really sorry for all the questions we haven't answered. This is getting more and more popular. We need to work out how to make it less popular, like the rest of that. Like the rest of that battle show.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Missed you guys all last week, but yeah, great to be back. We will see you. We got a pedalboard challenge this week.
Pedalboard challenge on
and
this.
it is hilarious. So we'll see you on Monday and have a quick chat about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, till then, look after yourselves, stay safe, have a great week, and we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye.